The Eagles put their undefeated record on the line on Monday night as they get set to take on the Washington Commanders. Why this should be an easy win for the Birds. Also, after a disappointing 5-7 start, is it time for the Sixers to fire Doc Rivers? This episode of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel starts right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. I am your host, Jordan Hirsch, and now, guys, before we get into this video, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. You could also follow me on Instagram. The link will be in the description below. The Eagles will look to improve to 9-0 as they find themselves in prime time once again, this time on Monday Night Football, 8:15 this Monday. On ESPN, they're going to get set to take on the Commanders, who are 4-5. They'd won 3 games in a row and looked like they were going to win their 4th in a row last week. However, some late scoring by Minnesota was able to get the Vikings over the hump as Washington lost their first game in a while, really their first game since Taylor Heinicke took over at quarterback. So, of course, Carson Wentz goes down over there. Backup comes in and immediately gets Washington on a little winning streak. That's just how it goes for Carson Wentz. But that winning streak did come to an end, and the Eagles will look to give Washington a 2-game losing streak on Monday. And honestly, they should. The Eagles are better than Washington in almost every major category this season, when offense, defense, special teams, all that. Washington has a couple of good wide receivers in, of course, Terry McLaurin, who Darius Slay, I'm sure, will be on all night, and then Curtis Samuel, who James Bradbury, I'm sure, will get that assignment. I trust these guys to be able to lock McLaurin and Samuel down, and Darius Slay locked down Justin Jefferson earlier this season. I don't expect anything different this week, and it really doesn't look like anybody else does either, as ESPN gives the Eagles an 83% chance to win this game. In Vegas, they are 11-point favorites at home. This should be an easy win for the Eagles. Of course, these divisional games they're never easy. Divisional teams will always give you a good fight, no matter the record, no matter where you're playing, no matter what the teams look like. So I really do think this is going to be a game where the Eagles should win. I think that it's going to either be a really close, hard-fought game, or the Eagles are going to just blow Washington out of the water. And I'm kind of starting to lean more towards the blowout. Again, I think this is really a game that's going to be like 45-10 or like 27-26. Again, because these divisional games are always tough. I just think that the Eagles are going to be too much for Washington to handle. They've got Jalen Hurts, who's a baller. He's been balling all season. A.J. Brown is starting to get up there. He's got 6 touchdowns. He's starting to get towards the league lead there. And how about the game C.J. Gardner-Johnson has been playing recently? He now has 5 picks. That leads the NFL. The Eagles lead the NFL in total takeaways with 18. They have 12 team interceptions. That also leads the league. It's the same amount of interceptions they had all of last season. So the Eagles certainly have improved defense. Jonathan Gannon, I think, has proved everybody wrong. There are a ton of people, of course, that wanted Jonathan Gannon out of here after last season, and rightfully so. The Eagles' defense was not very good. Gannon never really used the blitz, which he has used not a ton, but enough this year to be able to keep teams honest. And the Eagles' defense all around has just been fantastic. Of course, they added Robert Quinn at the trade deadline, so just more and more bolstering for this Eagles team that looks like they are poised for a deep playoff run, and maybe even further, as they look at the interviews that some of these Eagles players gave over this kind of half bye week that they had playing last Thursday. They're not playing until Monday. And they are all staying humble, all saying that, hey, look, we're 8-0, but we don't want to be 8-0. We want to be 17-0. We want to go win the Super Bowl. 8-0 isn't enough. I mean, cool, we're the only undefeated team left, but there's still a long way to go, and that's the exact way that they should be looking at it. And of course, the football field is not the only place that the Commanders are currently struggling in. They find themselves in a couple of legal battles right now. It was announced earlier in the week that Dan Snyder finally is intending to sell the team. And then, of course, the day after, it was announced that the FBI was going to look into the Commanders' financial records. Interesting timing there, Dan. We've been asking you to sell the team for forever, and he finally decides on the day before the FBI says he's going to investigate that team. And to make matters worse, later in the week, the D.C. Attorney General announced a lawsuit against not only Dan Snyder, but against the Commanders and against the NFL. The lawsuit alleges that Washington, the NFL, and Dan Snyder all colluded to deceive D.C. residents about an NFL investigation into the team's toxic workplace culture, which we all know is just awful down there. And everything about that team is just terrible. The lawsuit basically says that Washington, along with the NFL, tried to keep fans in the dark as they basically lied about their efforts in that investigation so they can increase profits for the team. Honestly, I'm not even surprised at this point. Washington has just been awful for years. Everything about that team is just terrible. From the way they handle players, the way they handle staff, and of course the way they handle the rest of their employees. Dan Snyder is, I believe, the worst owner in professional sports. I just want to take a look at some key injuries now for both teams. Eagles really only have one, and that's Avonte Maddox, was listed as questionable yesterday on the injury report. I think he's going to end up being a game-time decision over in Washington. Their defensive standout, Chase Young, is still out as he recovers from that torn Achilles last season. There was speculation that he might play this week. However, he is listed as out. Running back J.D. McKissick, along with linebacker Cole Holcomb, are both questionable. David Mayo, Tyler Larson as well, questionable over there for Washington. So not a ton going on in the injury reports for either team. Certainly something to keep an eye on, I think, with the Eagles with Avonte Maddox. It will be Kayvon Wallace, presumably, if Maddox cannot go. But I think he's going to be a game-time decision. The fact that we play Monday, I think, may help him in playing this week. And finally, my prediction for this game. I am going to go with the blowout. I think the Eagles win this game easily. 38-14 is my prediction. I just think the Eagles are way too much for Washington right now. I think everything going on with that team, those distractions on and off the field, are going to play a role, and I think the Eagles win this game big. I think they win this game easily. I'll say Jalen Hurts has 4 passing touchdowns, along with a rushing touchdown as well. I'll say A.J. Brown picks up 2. Dallas Goedert gets 1. Devontae Smith tacks on another. Jalen Hurts, of course, has that rushing touchdown. Eagles add a field goal. That gets them to 38. And I say they win easily. 38-14 Birds this week. Eagles improve to 9-0. Switching gears now into the Sixers, and specifically head coach Doc Rivers, who after a 5-7 start once again has fans clamoring for him to be fired. And I agree. I mean, I think it's about time that this guy goes. This team looks lifeless offensively and defensively. They're well underperforming right now. And I understand that James Harden's been out for a little bit of this. But, I mean, you have to be able to adjust if you're a head coach in the NBA. And it seems to be the same thing with Doc Rivers every year, is that I think it's really mostly that he's not giving the players roles. I mean, you see different lineups, basically, not necessarily starting lineups, but different rotations, really, every night. He still hasn't decided between Paul Reed and Montrezl Harrell for the backup center. It seems like these guys are always playing with different guys every night, and that's not how you win games. Look at what the Phillies did. When they fired Joe Girardi wasn't given any. He was shuffling the lineup every night. He was bringing in relievers at different times, basically every game. And what did Rob Thompson come in and do? He settled it down. He started consistently using the same lineup. He started telling the guys in the bullpen, "Hey, look, this is when you're going to go in. This is when you're going to go in." It's not necessarily you're going to go in the 7th inning, the 8th inning, the 9th inning, but you're going to go and you're going to face 1, 2, 3 if there's a big spot, or you're going to face the bottom of the lineup if we're in a big spot, no matter what inning it is. And that really settled the Phillies down, and look what happened. They turned themselves around from a team that was 8 games under 500 in June to a team that went to the World Series. And I just think the Sixers really need definitive roles. I think it's even more important in basketball than it is in baseball, considering the fact that you're running up and down the court with these guys all the time. And I think it's really critical that these guys have roles, and Doc Rivers is not giving it to them right now, and I really think he's lost the locker room completely. It seems to be the same thing wherever he goes. There are rumors that he lost the locker room in Los Angeles when he was with the Clippers, and it's been the same thing really over the last year and a half with the Sixers, that it feels like he's lost the locker room. You don't really see much ownership or accountability between the players, and especially from Doc. You never see it from him, and that's something that the Sixers really wanted, I think, after they fired Brett Brown, was a guy who will come in and be a leader, take accountability if things don't go their way, and it's just been the same old with Doc Rivers. I think it's maybe not super overdue, but it's definitely overdue for him to go. He should have been fired in the offseason. Daryl Morey, for whatever reason, decided to keep him. Maybe it's because that without Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey probably wouldn't be with the Sixers, since the Sixers wanted Doc Rivers to sign off on the Daryl Morey hiring a couple off seasons ago. But that's just a theory, really. I think that it's really time. Daryl Morey has to put his foot down and say, listen, what's best for the team is that you get out of here. And the Sixers do certainly have some quality coaching candidates on their already within their organization. Assistant head coach Sam Cassell, Dan Burke, who we saw get some time as a head coach last season when Doc Rivers was out for a few games, and Sixers really played well under him. Dave Yeager, who of course has NBA coaching experience in Sacramento, he'd be another good fit, I think. And if you want to look outside the organization, Mike D'Antoni, I think, would be the number one target. Of course, him and Daryl Morey worked alongside together at their days in Houston, when, of course, they also had James Harden on that team. Sixers, they come down between Mike D'Antoni and Doc Rivers in the 2020 offseason when they were looking for a new head coach. A lot of fans, including me, wanted them to go with D'Antoni. That did not happen. So I think that he'll definitely be high on the Sixers' radar if they do indeed decide to fire Doc Rivers. And I also really think this team just needs a jolt, and sometimes firing your head coach mid-season will do that. Again, the Phillies kind of did the same thing. When the Phillies fired Joe Girardi, I think every player in that locker room took a look in the mirror and said, listen, this is on us. We have to turn this around. And I think the same thing could happen with the Sixers. I think they haven't been playing with much energy on either end of the court, and a lot of that is on coaching, but of course a lot of that is on the players as well. And I really think they need a wake-up call, and I think firing the head coach mid-season would definitely give that for this team. And who knows, maybe it could be like another Rob Thompson situation. Maybe they won't be as successful as Topper was with the Phillies. At this point, I'm not really expecting the Sixers to go to the finals, but to at least maybe make some headway in this Eastern Conference, and who knows what can happen. Of course, everybody wants this team to at least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. They haven't been there in a long time, and it seems to just be the theme recently is second-round exits. So the goal for this team, if it's not the NBA Finals, it's to at least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think at this point, the way they've started, the Eastern Conference Finals is kind of the top goal on everyone's mind right now, and I think it all has to start with a coaching change, because Doc Rivers has proven that he's not going to be a guy to adjust, whether that be in game or in season, and it's the same thing every year. And I think this team really just needs a shake-up right now, because they look like they're going nowhere fast. So if you guys have made it this far, leave a comment and let me know what you would do if you were Daryl Morey. Would you fire Doc Rivers, or would you give him a little bit longer of a leash right now, especially considering the Sixers are dealing with some injuries? So what would you guys do? Let me know in the comments. Would you fire Doc, or would you keep him around for now? Alright, that is going to wrap things up for this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. Again, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. I'm back to posting every Saturday. Now that the Phillies postseason run is over, we're going to have a little bit more consistency back with the channel. So I'm back to posting every Saturday. Make sure you guys are also following me on Instagram. The link's down in the description below, or you can just look me up. It's at Philly Sports Spot. That's PhillySportSpot. So just one S between sport and spot. And until next week, everybody, let's go Birds and Sixers. Let's find some way to turn this around.